We are live. Hello, Facebook.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, my dear. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much. Just come off one little live into another one. So I'm very happy about that. Talking about breathing with a gentleman, Alex, that you may know in Bali. He's called Breathing Cold Bali, and he does breath work, which kind of is so connected to what we're talking about today, which is about healing trauma. And I think it's really interesting, in having just spoken with Alex about the breath, been talking to him about the diaphragm. Here's the diaphragm that's just like an umbrella, and talking about the anatomy of how important the breath is in relation to healing trauma, in relation to getting to the depths of trauma that may be hidden in the body. And for us, with our conversation within healing trauma, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, we are in a situation where to bring yourself back to the breath with this combination of tuning forks that we have shared with you here, we have the capacity for us to be able to check into our own personal strengths and beauty within the breath, and have support with these tuning forks that just get and delve into areas that may have been exposed to trauma, areas that that person may not have even connected to. And I think there's such a potency with the combination of the breath and with the tuning forks that takes us to a different level, especially when it comes to trauma. Often we are in a traumatic situation, we're in our flight, fright, fight sympathetic nervous system. And what does the breath do? It really guides us into our parasympathetic nervous system, of which one of the tuning forks that we have chosen really enables you to access, and it encourages you to engage more within that parasympathetic nervous system and reducing that sympathetic adrenalized flight, fright and fight state. So we've shared a lot about trauma, of which, most people that are coming to see us as therapists, whether they've had an accident, that's some degree of trauma in relation to spraining an ankle, whether it's a burn that we were speaking about yesterday, whether there's acute chronic inflammation, maybe that's been brought on by eating the wrong foods or some kind of inflammatory disease or problem there. But a lot of what we are looking at is trauma-based treatments. And I've really got present to healing trauma through this time of COVID, because I wanted to reflect on what it is that I do during my treatments. And it's about healing trauma. It's about being that detective, which I think sound does for you without being quite such a detective. Now, within this course, we've included the importance of the patient's consultation, right? We really thought that would be so important to share that, because our questioning to our patients is so very important in trying to elicit and try and be this detective of trauma, of where and how and why. And some people like to hold on to their trauma. Some people just like, it's their friend. They're just like, I don't want to let you go, trauma. I quite like living in this traumatic state because that's what I know. So to bring people into that awareness of bringing them into their story, of trying to unravel that story, try to undo what has been done. So what's your experience and history about healing trauma, Eeshi-Ra? What would your input be and your sharing for people out there that would like to hear about healing trauma?
I suppose for me, what is key about sound is, if we think about trauma, what is the common way in which most of us deal with that? We dissociate. We go out of our body, or we get up in our mind, and we don't want to feel it. Perhaps we don't want to be in that place. We just, just park it, put it over there. And specific sound frequencies, they can actually help us not only ground out of the mind, but they can help us start to feel like, oh, I'm feeling a bit of a tightness in my belly, or I'm feeling a bit of a compression or contraction in my right shoulder. And it's so fascinating. You and I have talked about this a lot. Like, someone comes to you for one challenge, but then they suddenly get a memory as you're working with the sound, because it's that beautiful intelligence going into the body, and it's looking for those layers of challenge and layers of where the body's not literally vibrating harmoniously. The client suddenly goes, oh my God, that's going to my left knee, and I had an accident. Oh, I forgot about it, because we just pick ourselves up and force ourselves to get back into the world. And that's why I love sound, because it helps us stop dissociating. And generally I take the view that patients come to us when they're ready, and certainly for me, I've created other modalities different to cellular sonics, where I purely worked with grounding frequencies, and suddenly the clients had a massive emotional release. And it's completely come out of nowhere, but it's simply in that place of the client feels safe. The client, has that gentle vibration moving through the body, which is starting to move energy. And in that space, it's so beautiful with sound, because, there's a lot of different modalities out there working with trauma, and they may be a little bit too strong in terms of their approach, perhaps. And sound it basically takes you at your own pace. And I love that. So, clients have come to me where they've had those different challenges, and they've had that recall. They've come to you for one thing, and then suddenly there's been other benefits, and they've left feeling lighter, like they've literally drained the bath, and in our society today, emotionally, we don't necessarily process things, fully, so that we clear them, and we're still holding on to them, or we park them somewhere in the physical body or the energy field. And this is such a beautiful way of helping you reconnect with your emotions. And as you do that in that safety of using the sound, it's just brilliant. It's super elegant.
So what that's brought up for me is, here's some examples. I've used these tuning forks with, I'm going to use the heart as an example here, emotional, mental and spiritual, for example. So I've had patients come in that have been going through some heartbreak. Now, this may be through death within the family, it may be through split up within a marriage, a relationship, whatever it might be, some kind of emotional trauma around the heart, of which I know some people within that situation, their posture starts to almost come over and protect their heart. Now, the resonance, the heart has a tone anyway. Every single chakra, energy wheel system in our body, which is, we have the anahata chakra over the heart region. There is a very interesting muscular, well, let's say fascial ligamentous attachment into our skeleton here that we have. The heart's tucked up in the rib cage, it's attached to the sternum, and it's attached to a couple of different regions of the spine, of which, if we utilize tuning forks within that area of where there's been some emotional trauma, think about your energy. If you've had an emotional trauma around your heart, there's kind of like a heaviness, it's not like I've just passed my exams and I'm feeling so joyous. The energy around that and your heart and your posture shifts. Now, with that posture and with the osteopathic approach to maybe that trauma that's affecting that posture, that person may end up with some back pain. They need to have opening up through their chest. with tapping in with the tuning forks, that is so beneficial for the resonance of that, maybe that darkness that is over the heart is so very beneficial, and it's created a big healing emotional release within many treatments that I've had of placing the tuning forks on that sternum, which then starts to resonate through the whole fascial network of the heart. Amazing. People are blown away by it in a lovely way. And if we can allow that trauma to unfold, to be expressed, then we are then allowing this trauma to be healed and to be unraveled. In relation to a dear friend, next partner of mine, Mitch, he had a triple bypass. So they open up your sternum, they cut it, they open it up, they stop your heart, they do a bypass of the blood in a machine. They then wire up the heart. This is long story short, wire up the heart, close it all up. And then you're left with this healing situation of your heart that's been taken out of its bag, has been taken out of the chest. You've been opened up in half, kind of thing. So that also is emotional, but it's incredibly physical. And there's a degree of spirituality and the energetics. We wanted to also share with you about the energetics. We've got a main meridian line, the conception vessel that runs down through the central front part of our body. And within the course, we've included meridian points within the tuning forks. Now, for this situation, the meridian through the front that had been all chopped and opened up, utilizing the tuning forks onto certain acupuncture points were really beneficial for the treatment of Mitch post-surgery, of which you've got pre and post-surgery information as well that we've also shared. So it can be such a lovely, gentle way to introduce a healing with a very fragile body, a body that's just had surgery, has been really opened up, of which that's going to take time. It's really going to take time for that person to heal. So that brings about such an interesting understanding about the healing of the different kinds of trauma, mental, emotional, physical. Often that mental trauma can end up being in conversation and going over and over again, like the monkey mind. That's this internal conversation, dialogue that can drive you mad. Tuning forks can be very helpful for balancing that left and right side of the brain. Not to say that a little bit of conversation with somebody wouldn't go amiss, yet sometimes we need to go, I need to stop thinking about this stuff because it's causing me mental trauma, and I need to consciously stop this, and the tuning forks are really helpful for that kind of support.
Yeah, so they can also stimulate a certain part of the brain. Like one of the frequencies we're working with, it stimulates the part of the brain that relates to cognitive processing, and also help, empathy. So empathy for self, empathy for others. And, if we think about different ways in which we perhaps on a soul level, like if we look at the spiritual, reasons why we create challenges in our life, sometimes it is our soul calling us to, fall down, have an accident because we weren't supposed to go to work today, or we're actually not supposed to go to that job interview because that's not our right path.
Wakey.
Yeah. And
had to go there myself.
And it's great to really sort of see, how our lives unfold perfectly. We're being guided all the time, even though we might like to think, oh yeah, that wasn't supposed to happen, but we can look in retrospect and say, oh yeah, actually it was perfect.
yeah, definitely. So I think the just coming back to those acupuncture points, I'm certainly not an acupuncturist. I've done a dry needling course. I have done a 10-day acupuncture course with a fantastic gentleman called Nico, who we have used some of the pictures from his book the Acupuncture Academy. He is tip top, does amazing 10-day acupuncture courses, and will meet you wherever you need to be met. He's like a guru. He speaks about 5 different languages. He knows all about traditional Chinese herbs. He is the go, and he is in Thailand, Chiang Mai. Anyone wants to get his details to go and do that 10-day course, I would highly recommend it. I will go and do that for my second course as well, just to keep me, into that world, because it's a big, big world, that whole 5 elements, getting into all of the different lines. And there's some beautiful work being shared out there. So we have shared to the best of our abilities and used a little bit of information from his book. We would suggest to utilize his book along with your own education if you are a acupuncturist and would like to utilize tuning forks for the people that maybe are not very good at forks, and giving them not utilizing needles, as you have a bit of a phobia of needles. So utilizing the fork onto the acupuncture point can also be so powerful. So it's a good alternative. Good alternative for you.
Yeah, and actually there are some acupuncturists who are finding that they're getting better results with tuning forks than needles.
Right.
And if you think about the acupuncture point, it's actually got about a 1 inch radius of where you can. So you don't have to be a fully trained acupuncturist to know where the point is exactly, because you're not working with a needle, you're working with a fork. And it's so beautiful using those points, because you are helping stimulate the different organs, and some of them can be so powerful for different parts, different types of trauma.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. Well, I'm really happy with our conversation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share there today, Eeshi-Ra?
Yeah, I suppose we've been talking also about sexual trauma, and I wanted to share a little bit of a story with one of the. I've got another modality called Sex Sonics, which is using sound for sexual healing, and this was very interesting because I was working with a friend, and it's using sound for de-armoring, so that area can hold a lot of tension for many, many reasons.
What's de-armoring, Eeshi-Ra?
So de-armoring is a way of helping shift and release different contraction and muscle tension and energy flow in the whole pelvic region. That can be from different reasons, which I won't go into now. But just to give you a glimpse, like I was working with this one friend, and I'm in process of creating this modality for de-armoring specifically, and we were working with tuning forks using a special technique. And what was fascinating, she'd actually had a bike accident just a week before, and the body's going, okay, well, priority issue, is actually the bike accident. Before we want to talk about any other energy flow through the body, we're going to work on that first. And the first half hour, 40 minutes of the session was purely working on opening the contraction and the compression in her pelvis. And she was feeling all this pain as the energy released. And once that had gone, like those layers of the onion, once those few layers had started to open, shift, and release, then we could start working on the energy of the de-armoring. So it's fascinating how the body works, and I think that's the beauty of sound. It's very intelligent, and it will always give you what you need. I think we're in a massive time of change, and what I love about the frequencies we're offering you, we can look at the physical benefits, which are many, many, many. And obviously we've got the mental and emotional. But on a spiritual level, what is it that we as humans need to do now? If we look at our lives at this moment in time, we have come so far from our roots, so far from our connection to ourself, to the earth, to spirit, You know, we've been letting the mind run the show. And what sound can do, it's bringing all those other physical, emotional, and mental benefits, but it's also tuning us in spiritually. And if we think about, you know, when I got on my path with sound, I was always asking, like, is there one frequency or is there a series of frequencies which can be like a reset, a reboot? And from my research, I found, well, there are actually chambers that vibrate to certain frequencies, which when you are in them, you feel this deeper connection with yourself, this alignment, this attunement. And once we are in that place, then the mind isn't running the show. We're in our bodies, we're in a more harmonious state. And therefore we make better decisions in our lives. We're not running from fear. We're not ruled by the reptilian brain. And we can create a better life for ourselves. So, you know, there's a lot of beauty in you know, you may come and have a session with me or come and have a session with Rachel, and you think you're coming for the physical challenges, but you get all these beautiful, you know, insights through dreams and, you know, yeah, exactly. At nighttime, you know, and you go, you get a memory of something, you go, oh, I loved doing that. You know, and that used to bring me such joy. And why am I not doing it now? You know, shamans in the ancient world, they always say, when you come to see them, what made you stop dancing and singing? You know, and when we ask ourselves, it's like, what are we doing which is stopping bringing us joy? You know, so it's a beautiful way of coming back to ourselves.
What are we up to in our lives? How are we showing up within ourselves? Yeah. So that is a question that we're going to leave you with. How are you showing up in the world? How are you choosing to be in this world? Yeah. Big question. See you tomorrow. We're going to have a bit of a talk about pregnant mums and ladies, I think, and babies. Ladies, babies. Get it right.
Children.
And children.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Loads of love. See you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.